Every day, America Online is making it easier for people to live, work, and play.
When we installed internet access on our computer, I got the whole family involved.
A new place for you to use your computer.
Just what is this main artery of the information superhighway?
You beautiful bastards.
No matter how large, no matter how small, we'll be on the internet in the year 2000. It's the primary way that people will look at information.
Shut up!
When we were there.
Hello and welcome to When We Were There, Biased Internet History. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Josh, and this is a podcast all about history of internet Oh, I fucked up again.
You're so nervous.
I'm so nervous right now. Cue it up again, Thomas. Christ!
What, the whole song?
Not the whole song. They already think we're idiots.
Hello and welcome to When We Were There, Biased Internet History. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Josh, and this is a podcast all about the history of internet content, the who's, the what's, the where's Waldo. We get into it all.
Whether you like it or not.
This is like the second time I fucked up. It was Yusuf Abu Taleb from Lonely Girl 15.
No, you fucked up again.
Did I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Oh, no, wait, no. Sorry.
So don't.
I wasn't it with what's his face?
I already messed up, but this is a very
Evolution
special...
of Dance. What's his name?
Judson?
Judson?
Lipley? Yeah, no, I don't think I messed up. I think I nailed it.
You killed it.
You're embarrassing me right now.
I'm embarrassing myself.
This is a very special episode for two reasons. Number one, this is our season finale.
Yeah.
This is our last episode in my spare room.
In the little baby studio.
Laura finally gets to use the room that she pays half the money for.
And I'm finally going to not be pissed off every time I come in here.
How small it is, yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, just out of camera, you guys can't see, but it's completely covered in, like, muck
garbage,
and debris.
Everything. There's a craft station, what seems to be a printer on the floor, yoga mats. It's not pretty, but don't worry. We'll be in a soundproofed room, a booth where we'll be doing looping for all of our commercials. We'll have an engineer now. We're moving on up. And you know what? There might be a reason we're moving on up. Me and Thomas wouldn't goddamn be here if it weren't for today's guest.
Yeah.
You know how in the beginning of a lot of episodes we say we're goddamn indie moguls?
Because we are goddamn indie moguls.
Well, here's the reason. Today we have two of the coolest guys, sorry to any other guest, but the most excited guest I am to have on the goddamn pod. We have Justin Johnson and Eric Beck from Indie Mogul. Guys, welcome.
Woo. Thank you.
Ayo.
Excited to be here.
How are you guys doing in the end of the world?
The world's beginning again, so it's all fine again.
Well, not in Canada, but...
Oh, in Canada.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
We're a little behind you guys.
I can attest to that.
Well, Eric, you're in Toronto right now, which has the worst of it.
Oh, yes.
Still full lockdown.
Oh, yes. I'm well aware. It's, yeah, well, you know, I normally live in LA and lived through all when it was bad there, and I'm working on a show out here for a while, and I knew I was coming in my mind. I'm like, oh, it's going to be great. You know, Canada's got its stuff together, and then just went from one lockdown to the next. And so that's not been fun. Also got COVID while I was here.
Oh, Jesus.
We're really doing you dirty, I guess.
And but luckily recovered fully, and getting a call, hang up. And was lucky enough to get my first.
That was the contact tracer.
Exactly. And got my first shot, so that's great.
Well, if it makes up for it in Kensington, there's a really good smoked meat poutineery. So if you go there, it'll make up for everything.
Okay.
I almost went there today, actually.
To
not the smoke, not that place, but Kensington specifically. Yeah.
Okay, well, next time. So if there are some idiots, so I don't know why anyone who would be listening to this podcast wouldn't know who you guys are, but on the off chance some dumbass doesn't know, who are you guys?
What a great question. Who are we? Yeah. I've been doing internet video since the late 90s, and kind of one of the OGs, I guess. Always been creating, and I met Eric through a site called Film Fights that I started way back in the day. And we created this filmmaking network through a company called Next New Networks, called Indie Mogul, which was very, very early YouTube, teaching people how to make movies when there really wasn't much. It's mostly dogs on skateboards. It was 90% dogs on skateboards, and then 5% was Indie Mogul.
Yeah. So it was the peak of the site. Everything after that was downhill.
It was all downhill from there.
And then,
well, I think the idea behind Indie Mogul, which was you know, I guess we could call it a YouTube channel, but at the time it was more like a internet community, because when we started, YouTube wasn't the only place where you put videos. There was, you know, probably 8 or 9 of these sites, like, not Vivo. I don't even remember what some of them are. Doesn't matter. They didn't,
MySpace, Google Video Channel
we did
101.
MySpace, yeah, video
Newgrounds,
podcasts.
if you really.
Oh yeah, and so as sort of DIY filmmakers ourselves who had met on Justin's site, Film Fights, I think we just want to create the community and like a virtual kind of home base for people like us, because it didn't exist. And so it was kind of the place that we would have wanted when we started, even though we had only been doing it, at least myself, not that long. And yeah, that was kind of the start. And I think we were one of the first, that kind of DIY.
Film Riot and us. And so we're Next U Networks. I'm repping the Next U Networks shirt I found in my closet.
Nice.
I guess
I didn't get that
it's
one.
kind of like not known as well as some of the other ones, but we were definitely earlier than a lot of the other ones. And the goal was to launch 100 niche branded content networks. And being a DIY filmmaker, we were doing like fashion, and we were doing one about MMOs, and we were doing car stuff. And so as a DIY filmmaker myself, I was like, went to the brass over there and was like, hey, we should do a DIY filmmaking network. That's what I'm really into, and I'd love to help do that. And the first person I thought of was Eric, because he just was always creating puppets and all and doing this other great DIY stuff. So that was the original kind of impetus for creating the channel, and really just grew it from all the incredible work that Eric put in, and this community that was very small, but I think grew very quickly. I call Indy Mogul like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for like film kids growing up.
Yeah, that's actually a really good.
There's totally Mythbusters vibes in there, which also made it so fun to watch.
That was definitely a huge inspiration. I remember. So Justin got hired at this company, Next Networks, first. He was like the first creative hire. You're first at so many things. Trailblazer. Yeah. And I was, we made a joke about this in the first couple episodes, but I was like literally working just a soul crushing temp job in downtown Oakland. And Justin got whisked away to New York to this amazing, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory company, where he's got just paid to make videos and live in New York. I'm like, how do I get a piece of this? Yeah. And he was like, well, you know, you're good at making stuff and doing little videos, like pitch us an idea. So that was where BFX came from. And the pilot, which I think we aired like as the 3rd episode, is the jetpack episode. Yeah. I literally just like called in sick for a couple days at this job and made it, you know, in the backyard.
You also were sick.
I was sick.
Don't make it seem like you're sacrificing for your art, because you were very sick in that pilot.
Well, yeah, but I would have gone to work normally. It's that blue collar, whatever. But and Mythbusters was a huge inspiration because it was so hot then, and I still have my notebooks kind of when I was conceiving Backyard Effects, and which the fun fact, the original working title was Smoke and Mirrors. Okay. You know, like, ooh, it's all trickery of the light. And then, but Mythbusters is definitely, you know, listed a lot in my notes when I was coming up with the format.
I was just saying to Josh, like, looking at the logo for it, I want to make a guess. Is it just a label maker that you printed out Indy Mogul on?
Yeah, that was, I can't take credit for the logo. Because it is. It's one of the old Dynamo label makers. Yep. Which
like the circle like handgun type one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was Alan made that, right? Or
no,
he had
we
the label
had
maker?
Next New had a designer who did all of our different logos.
Okay,
Alan,
just because it reminds me of the Mythbusters. Like they have like the metal plate with the writing inscribed into it, and it looks kind of similar to that, but it's just a label maker, which I think really represents like the Indy Mogul Backyard Effects vibe.
Oh yeah, totally. And all the transitions for BFX, you know, like super time lapse and whatever, when it's just like Sharpie on a piece of cardboard and everything, that was all super.
But that's like in my brain forever, like super time lapse in the shopping list and everything. Like that is, I don't know, that's like such a huge part of like my early filmmaking life. And I think a lot of people that grew up in that sort of era of YouTube will also say like so many little hacks and cheats, whether it be like learning how to make fake blood or just like how to do the knife in the head. Or I was even on.
Oh yeah, you know what? It's funny. We just watched The Matrix
last night.
And then you guys talk about like that's where I learned that trick as well. I totally forgot.
I remember I was on a film called La Quinceañera, which was a series, an independent series for like what was going to be Warner Brothers version of Netflix, and it was like by a company that does Mexican gore, and they did the pull the button out of the bullet wound. And I was like, oh shit, I learned that on Indy Mogul, and the actual like practical effects artist there was like, me too, and it was like. So it's like cool to kind of see like trademarks of like what's done in that industry and like talking to people who've either come from like gore or some sort of like wanting to do their own practical effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's crazy is that, you know, because I was teaching myself how to do these things every week.
Yeah.
Like you guys just, I wasn't an expert by any means. And so it was a combination of scouring the internet for like what information was available, which was almost none, on how the like professionals did it, and then just kind of rewatching it and how would I do it, you know? And what's been cool is now recently I've kind of been transitioning more into like full-time special effects and things like that for TV and movies. Well,
you're building robots that like have like their own timed camera rigs and stuff. Like it's awesome just to like, I was watching an Indie Mogul recently, just like, what's Eric doing right now? And also I think there was a sci-fi video and it was just like, this is, you've become Adam Savage.
Yeah, that's the goal. Just to take him down. No, I don't know. Adam is awesome. I did email with him briefly. Anyway, that's a side story. But now since I've been working more in the real industry and meeting some of these like old time special effects guys that have been doing it forever, I'm finding out how sort of close I was to how they did it, just organically kind of came up with the same way that they've been doing it all along. So that's always really cool.
Nice. And even just like a lot of the kids we would feature back in the day, like Clint Jones and Ren, the guys from Corridor, like we featured Clint. I think it was a video he made when he was in high school, this incredible cardboard warfare video.
Cardboard
I think that was when we did.
Yeah, you did do Cardboard Warfare, and then after that he came out with Cardboard Warfare 2, and they had like the submarine and everything. Like
it was incredible. It was astounding, and there's so many stories like that of kids like that who grew up or doing this kind of thing and were aware of Indy Mogul, who went on to just be so big in the space, which is so.
You featured 5-second films too.
Oh yeah.
We featured a lot of things. It was very very early, but I feel like such a kind of fatherly emotion towards like the Corridor kids and all that stuff. And Clint just left left Corridor recently, and I was texting with him, and I was like, "You're going on your own. I'm so proud of you, man."
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just did I left my dream job video on Corridor.
Oh wow, I'll have to check it out. I just think the best.
It's so cool how like I guess the best word and the worst word at the same time is incestuous, that kind of early YouTube era is, because like there's so many links. Like you guys featured 5-second films and also Clint Jones, and then Freddie W started doing videos with Clint Jones because like when they were doing their tour they went to Atlanta, I believe, and then also in Rocket Jump when they did their series Video Game High School, they also brought in I believe one of the heads of 5-second films. I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm so mad at myself once more. But
oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So and also I think a funny thing is like you guys kind of talking about how you were always featuring like other artists and YouTubers. One of your kind of sister companies, Barely Political, who is also one of the people like you watch a lot, who I actually found out through the Wolverine Claws video. That's how I found Barely Political.
Oh man.
And I also, I don't know if this is embarrassing or not to say, I still have the Wolverine Claws song and the Wizard Rat Battle song. Like that's in my mind, memorized.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So the thing is that what you realize is that, you find all these people who kind of came up together in the same kind of strata and knew each other and whatnot. And you think, oh, that's kind of, weird and incestuous or whatever. But then you start realizing, oh, that's how the real world works. And it's not like when it comes to politics, it's not like there are maybe there's secret societies, maybe not. But like it's no different than just these kind of casual relationships that come along a shared interest, and it's you create this Rolodex of people, and you want to work with them because you like them, and it's that.
And you see
know?
them at events and things like that.
But even like
and
traditional.
you got to think also like the internet back then was such a smaller place than it is
so
now.
small.
So
yeah,
because like another thing that we haven't mentioned yet, right? That was pre-interview. Justin, you were like very early to College Humor, maybe even disputing something.
Yeah, so a friend of the show, Jeff Rubin, said that he was the first hire at College Humor.
And that might be
Go, Justin.
I mean,
Get him.
I
Take 'em
remember
down.
emailing those guys when I was like in high school, and it was still like the late 90s College Humor with just like a black background, and it was very, very stripped down. And I was writing some of the first original guest writer College Humor articles, and then when I left home in like 2003, left Wisconsin to kind of just figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. I got a message from, so the 4 founders of College Humor, 3 of them, Jake Lodwick, who also founded Vimeo and a bunch of other things, Josh Abramson and Ricky Van Veen, were sort of like, hey, do you want to like come work for us? They were living in a house in San Diego for some reason, because they're East Coast guys, and they were like, for some reason, we got to go to California when we graduate college and run College Humor from there. And I don't know why San Diego. I don't know why not LA or something like
It's
that.
probably cheaper. It's probably cheaper than LA, and they're like close enough.
It was just a weird spot. So
They got a really good
was
zoo
hired
there.
on. Yeah, right. I was hired on, and basically was roommates with Jake, and it was me and the 3 founders of College Humor all living in this house, this big house in San Diego, which was like this major party house. They used to sell these things called big shockers, these foam like shocker fingers, and so the house was just filled with big shockers. The house was filled with like, but when Busted Tees started, I did some of those original designs. I was sort of like this hybrid designer, writer. I organized a bunch of their archives, that kind of stuff. So I think Kunal, who is the coder, I think he was already working for them at the time. So he may be the first, but I definitely was very, very early on. And because I was 21 and my role wasn't like super well defined, I just kind of, I was their first hire and their first fire several months later. So I have that that distinction.
Yeah, 2 firsts.
But it was great. Yeah, I remember, and this is and I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but after I was let go, of course we were roommates and friends, and I know those guys, and I was obviously pretty mad about it and kind of butthurt because we were so close. But in hindsight, I totally get it. I wrote this big, long, angry email to the guys about how I was wrong, blah, blah, blah. And
while you're in your bedroom and they're in the living room.
I was like, I barely worked. I was like on a road trip with my friends or something like that. I mean, I was a bit terrible.
Oh, jeez.
I know. I didn't. I totally deserved to be fired.
It was warranted.
I wrote this big, long, like angry email, and I just decided I'm not going to click send on this. I deleted it all. Wrote something really simple. Thanks for the opportunity. It was great. Let me know when I could pick up my stuff. And Jake Lodwick was the one who connected me with this guy, Fred Seibert, who is kind of like my mentor, second dad. He did Frederator and a bunch of other things when I was the founder of NextNew Networks. He introed me to Fred, which got me hired at NextNew, which brought in Eric and created this whole sphere of influence. So my number one advice for anyone is like, just don't burn any bridges. Don't send those emails. I've been on the other side of it when people have sent me, things like that, and just like, you're just off the list there, and that is, that's why we're talking today, and everything else is just
so
that.
Get fired.
Go. But
get
do
fired,
it cool.
but be chill about
Get fired, but be gracious.
Yeah. So why I mentioned the featuring videos on your channel is they did that on Barely Political as well, which I assume was inspired by, because I could be wrong, but because a lot of the stuff on the internet we found while researching is just like misinformation. But please correct me if I'm wrong.
Weird.
Yeah. But Justin, was it not that you started doing like a voicemail for Frederator, and that you brought to doing as well for Indy Mogul?
Frederator was a video podcast for animators, and my first work with Fred was creating interstitials for this animation video podcast. And so we wanted to do video because it would stand out from the animation stuff. It wouldn't all kind of be a blur. And so that was kind of one of my primary gigs for a couple of years, from like 2005 till 2007 when NextNew Network started, was creating these little things. And it was all about audience interaction. It was about, I love doing voicemails. Like Fred's a big proponent of that. So bring in voicemails from the audience, because that's the thing with podcasts, like there was no comment section. The ways you could interact with people was extremely limited. It was email.
Yeah, we know.
And voicemail was a great way of letting anyone who was watching be able to be part of it, and it gave the extra character of actually hearing their voice, their personality, that kind of thing. So I was always a huge proponent of that. And in early Indie Mogul, we had a voicemail line and got a lot of submissions that way. So just was kind of in the zeitgeist of what we did at Next New, that kind of thing. But it definitely was something I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, it's such like a memorable thing that you guys had that, and you featured other like creators, like fans channels, like you guys looking at the channels. And why I bring that up too is in, I think 2009, me and a friend in high school were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make 2 videos, one to try to get featured on Indie Mogul and one to try to get featured on Barely Political.
Nice.
So we did the cutting in half effect, which was like cardboard and a shirt with the bottle cap to be the bone. And we did that where he just like was throwing a stapler at me and it cut me in half. And then the other one, we did a music video for one of the actresses on Barely Political, Lauren Francesca. Like we did a music video parody love song. Nothing back. A month went by, didn't even think about it. So I get a call when I'm getting off the ferry from Victoria to Vancouver, and my cousin says, "You're on Barely Political." And I'm like, what? So I see their newest video, and usually like halfway in the video, they'll do like a compilation of fan videos. So it's like, oh, maybe they'll feature me. And this was one of the greatest moments of my young life. Michael Stevens did a whole video featuring the love song parody we made, and actually had him and Lauren Francesca react to it.
Oh, awesome.
And it made my young life.
Yeah.
Like it was the cool. And then all of a sudden that video that had like 300 views, and like in early YouTube, this was a big deal for a starter creator. It went up to like 20,000 views in like 2 days. And I was like,
that's huge.
Freaking out. And YouTube offered us like monetization, like, oh, let's do it. But we had copyrighted music in the background. And the only video anyone cared about, like, we couldn't do anything with it, and nothing manifested of it.
Well, Eric, you remember that our submissions in Indie Mogul, like how jammed that was with all the submissions.
Oh, of course. So like, we didn't expect anything to happen of it.
It was a lot. I mean, I love like at BFX, we had little channel change interstitial, and we would do those fun little clips. And then there was the one blog post, RIP. That's one of the saddest things, side note, about Indie Mogul, is like that the forums and like the original site doesn't exist anymore. But anyways, there was this one blog post that we created because I remember probably like 6 months in, maybe a year. I know you were in the room, Justin. I don't know if it was just you and me or it was like a company meeting, but I was starting to get worried, like I'm going to run out of ideas for effects.
That's right.
And then someone was like, just put up a request, like ask. I mean, it was always part of the show, like let us know. But in the beginning, I was just making the things that I wanted to make. And then so we created a blog post, and then we would always refer back to that one blog post just to make it easier, like put it in the comments. And I think it actually broke our site at one point because that one blog post had like so many, and it got to the point where whenever I had an idea of like, oh, it'd be great to make a Fishman makeup or something, I would just go to that blog post and keyword search Fishman, and so that I could say like, if it was an idea that I just wanted to selfishly make, I could just say like, this was requested. And I think almost every time it was requested by at least like 2 or 3 people.
Early on, we'd have to fake it though.
We did fake it. Especially the pilot, obviously. It was this, Danny Jacobs was this kid I grew up with.
And the president of TikTok, Vanessa Pappas.
Was
an early fake, because Vanessa was my manager. She was a plant. So in one of the very first episodes, God, there's so much like deep internet history. But in one of the very first episodes, I believe Vanessa Pappas was one of the requesters of these effects. And now she's like the head of like the biggest social thing in the world or whatever.
There's just, it's, again, incestuous might be the best word. It's foul, but
it's just really crazy. Like the more we
There's got to be a better word.
There's definitely a better word.
I'll give you another little. This is one of my favorite, very little known bits of Indie Mogul trivia. So the intro bumper for Indy Mogul, as you know, that is voiced by Michael Gregory of the Gregory Brothers,
Really?
who did auto-tune the news and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
And it was they hadn't done anything like that. It was someone, Ben Rellis, who started Barely Political.
Yep.
I was like, he was like, oh, why don't you do something with the email Sky Michael? That's how he talks. And so I emailed Michael Gregory and I was like, hey, I just need like a little bumper, like do a little 3-second bumper. And that's over and over again. That's the Gregory Brothers from Auto Tune the News.
That's
Anyways,
so
that's
crazy.
my little side trivia.
Well, them too. That's another thing where it's like a lot of their auto-tuned songs just memorized. Like so many things just between you guys, Barely Political, and them. It's like there is probably room in my brain that like made me a terrible student because it was filled with all your guys' stuff. That like I can remember this offhand, but like who started the Russian Revolution? Lenin? McCartney? I don't know, man.
Ringo.
Ringo. Okay, fair enough.
Ringo.
Yeah, I mean, incestuous is there's probably a more flattering word to use, but it's just I know the more we research and the more we learn about the internet, it's crazy to see all these webs like interconnecting everyone, and just like all the people that I thought were separate as a kid were actually all kind of connected in some way.
Yeah, especially all the next new, when you understand about next new networks and how all these channels that I think most people assumed were totally separate, we were all like in an office sitting 10 feet from each other. It kind of makes more sense. And like, I mean, like I don't know if you guys know, or you guys should definitely interview Threadbanger at some point.
Yeah, you guys feature them in a lot of your early videos.
Right, because we quickly became really good friends. They were the only other channel that really like built stuff, and our little workshops right next to each other. We were the ones that were always there at like 2 a.m. And Barely Political. I mean, I just remember Michael Stevens, who obviously is like, Vsauce is so amazing and huge. Like that's really how he talks and thinks. Like when he was just like a contributor to Barely Political, and I'd be at my desk like editing a BFX video, he would just come up and like lean on my cubicle and be like, Eric, did you know that like the universe is bigger than like the blah blah, and if you took the Earth and it was the size of a pin, and he would just like just start spewing this really interesting stuff. Video. Yeah, and I'd be like, cool, Michael, like I better get back to this edit. Like, cool, all right, thanks. And then he would just turn around and walk away.
Who knew the bearded nun would become the biggest celebrity?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. And another fun fact about Vsauce is their old end bumper, was it? With the
tape.
It was
that they
Justin's
squeezed.
hand.
Oh, really?
Squeezing the NES controller.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the goo. That's Justin's hand.
God, this is
And he also made it.
blowing my mind.
Yeah.
The Frederator logo, that plays on like
That one?
that's on Adventure Time and stuff on TV, where the Frederator head gets built by Legos.
Yeah.
I shot that.
Jesus, you guys. Because
I didn't build. I can't.
Huge Adventure Time guys. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't. That was me and 2 other people filming that in front of the same green screen where we shot a lot of Indie Mogul videos.
I'm so giddy right now.
It's great, Eric, because now people actually care about this stuff.
Exactly.
It's like all of our trivia is gonna go as like a fine wine. It will keep aging as people.
I mean, it's true though, honestly. Like, because again, particularly with you guys, like we were researching and realizing like the fact that you're connected to Frederator for me was insane. Like,
and then Old Man the Seymour.
Yeah, Old Man and the Seymour is another thing that I wanted to mention. That I realized though,
I've got some behind the scenes stories about that.
Nice.
Please.
So for people who don't know, Old Man and the Seymour is a short film done by I think they're the guys Giancarlo and Jonathan
the
Grimm.
directors for Jake and Amir.
Yeah,
who are also a big inspiration for this podcast.
Yeah, Jake and Amir are
Nice.
huge. And so it stars Amir and Streeter from College Humor. Also has Dan in it, and he's
Dan's in it.
hilarious.
And he's a SNL writer now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, him and Sarah were like the head writers for SNL for quite a while.
Yeah, I think Sarah was actually the first from that original crew to leave to go do like something super cool.
Yeah, and Dan is at Last Week Tonight.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I think but anyway, so obviously I was like huge College Humor fan back in the day, and I was watching you guys as well. And then I saw that your behind the scenes video, your on location video for the Nosebleed Effect.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? There's this movie? and I promptly watched it. And I watched it again last night, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And the nosebleed thing, that whole bit is actually so funny.
Yeah.
So Streeter
Just gets hit with a ball. Yeah.
he gets hit with a dodgeball when he's talking to a girl he likes, and his nose starts bleeding like pretty bad. And he's like, "No, it's fine. I don't."
Well, at
even...
first it's small. It's just like holding it, and it's like looks pretty bad. And he's like, "Really?" And
he's
it's
like,
just
"I don't even think it really hit me."
Really? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it didn't even hit me.
We probably pumped like, I don't know, at least 15 gallons of fake blood.
Well, there's like an inflatable pool.
Yeah, kiddie
them.
pool. Yeah. And then the fun fact though, and for me, it's funny enough, that was at the time the biggest set that I'd ever been on, which now I realize it was pretty small, but like it was also the first time I really saw like a dolly and like a floor dolly and everything. And because me and Justin didn't go to film school or anything. And but fun story about that is, the effect worked out really great, and we were friends with John and Giancarlo already.
From Film Fights,
and
I think, actually. So if you want to go
they
real
were
deep
film
internet,
fighters.
Film Fights is probably the origin story for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Amir, I knew him from College Humor stuff, but he did stuff for Film Fights. It was like a very 2003. I started it. It was film festival, online film festival, like Channel 101. We started right around the same time. But anyways,
another funny thing real quick about that, it's like a fandom wiki or something. It talks about that's where you guys met, was through Eric submitting to Film Fights. But and I quote from the article, Eric's videos weren't good, but had puppets and humor. And that's why you guys
I read that quote. I'm gonna send Justin a mean email.
I think you were mostly in the middle.
I don't think Justin said
it's not a Justin quote. It's just what whoever made the wiki said.
Nice.
That.
Yeah, they just didn't like your videos, I guess.
That's fair. To be fair, they were pretty bad. I learn very fast. That's my greatest skill.
I think it's crazy to think that Film Fights almost didn't happen because a cracked out Gary told you it was a bad idea.
I know. Jeez, man.
But Eric, you saved the day there.
Yeah.
That was such a fun episode to shoot too.
That was so cool to watch. But go on. Yeah.
Quick Streeter funny behind the scenes is that so we pumped all that blood, and it was the fake blood recipe that I had been using on VFX for a while.
Yeah.
And I had. I never really, it didn't seem like it really stained my skin very much. But again, like I didn't have a lot of experience. And keep in mind, like we were pumping they kept doing retakes and we were pumping gallons and gallons. And so, it cut and, he goes to the bathroom to clean up. And before we left, he comes, he pulls me aside and he's like, yeah, that's just like, it's just a pink, dot, like stain, like all the way down into his junk. and then I don't remember if we like ran into him at a party later or it was like a friend of, but basically, it like lasted for days. So he just had this like ribbon down.
He usually has a beard. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Not,
but just,
not for that film he didn't.
No, sure. He had to be
he didn't.
No,
you're
he's supposed to
right.
look like a teenager.
We actually used that effect in film school. We did a Western where two people get shot, and we use that blood effect on that with the air compressor through the hose with the fake blood. It's just the more and more you say stuff, I'm like, wow, I really used a lot of your guys' shit, and I don't know if I credited.
You're gonna have to start paying cash.
I'm gonna have to start paying you guys soon.
I really one of my regrets is that for Indy Mogul I didn't do because my role at Next View Networks was the head of branding and packaging. So my kind of goal was to intertwine all the networks with all the interstitials and also kind of have fun putting them together with the branding. But I really regret, if I could go back and change anything, I wish I would have done like a very long promo campaign, basically telling all the kids who watched Indy Mogul that when they win an Oscar to thank Indy Mogul. And that would have been such great brainwashing, because I know if an Indy Mogul kid hasn't won an Oscar yet, like they will at some point. And like if I could have put that into their head as like, that's a goal. When I win, I'm going to thank Indy Mogul. I know it would have happened, but maybe
we're doing commercials now. So if we get a Clio, we'll definitely thank you guys.
When we get a Pomme d'Or.
A Pomme d'Or for a commercial.
For a 30-second web commercial.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll thank you guys. So I have to ask all of you guys, especially Thomas, will you let me go into like 5 minutes of just nerdy tech shit?
I'll allow it.
Okay. So something that I think is very cool, especially like when you guys started making videos, was kind of in that in-between era of like the HD mini DV and recording onto cards. And I think what's very cool about that is a lot of people that grew up on Indy Mogul, myself included, were those people that were on a mini DV camera, shot, cut, maybe rewinded to cut some stuff out, and either edited through a VCR or just hooking up composite to a TV, and then transitioned into like kind of when you guys were doing your videos, learning to actually do it in editing software, either, bringing mini DV files into like Final Cut or, just whatever's
Premiere.
Yeah, and
or Windows Movie Maker.
Oh, there was some Windows.
I
Movie
recognize
Maker.
that. A lot of our submissions had that blue background.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think something that I talk way too much about in our office is old codecs that had really bad chroma. Old codecs that had really bad chroma subsampling, which made it hard to do green screens because you'd get that edge around you because it just turned this block of colored pixels all into green.
Right.
But there must have been a transition where you guys either went to like DSLR and maybe used something like Magic Lantern Raw, because like I remember in your first video, and I'm not shitting on anyone, but when you guys are doing the rocket effect, there's like a big green hue around as kind of something that was unavoidable with the technology of the time. In fact, it was in Star Wars you saw that.
Oh wow. For that the jetpack one was like literally the first video. That was the pilot that I shot that weekend while being sick. And so I probably hadn't even taught myself, like you talked about the video
how to light a
like
green screen. Yeah.
So like I hadn't taught myself how to light it.
You mean your character hadn't evolved? It's an actual it's a well scripted, it's a scripted series from start to finish. His character was learning.
Yeah. It's our lonely girl. Another deep cut.
Oh yeah. They were a guest. Yeah.
Oh really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The very first probably 6 months of Indy Mogul was all shot on a Canon GL2 to mini DV tapes.
Yeah.
And then all edited in Premiere. And then we got Panasonic GH1s, which was shot to P2 cards. And that was, I remember.
No, that was so weird. HVX.
HVX, sorry. What did I say?
You said it was GH, but that's way too new.
Oh, yeah, that's wrong. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, HVX. And that it was weird to me because I just didn't trust it. I'm like, what? You just use it once and then like re-record over and over again? Where's your tape backup? and then I would say the bulk of Indy Mogul was shot on the HVX, and then towards the end we switched to the DSLR.
But I think it's crazy like how much independent filmmaker technology is like grown from that point, because like even by the time, or it's not that soon after, where you do the season 1 finale, it looked like the effects like totally hold up today. Like the green, like the quality is like insane for the time. And now if you look at like something like, we're shooting on like even on our smaller stuff like a Black Magic, and you're getting to shoot like 2.5K or 4K raw, that is probably the same price that like a mini DV camera would have been. And it's,
I paid $2,000 for that GL2, and that was like secondhand on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know if Craigslist was around then, but
I think it's just crazy to think of like how much more work.
We got to get Craig on the podcast.
Craig?
Yeah.
From his list?
Mr. List.
Yeah.
Mr. List. Come on the pod.
But yeah, it's just like how much more effort you had to put into like getting a particular look just because of like the, sensitivity of the sensor for lighting wasn't as great. So you'd really have to light a scene up more, or just like limited to the technology of shooting on tapes and having like real time.
Yeah.
Put that on your computer. Like it just.
Well, that's the crazy thing.
The capture time.
Yeah.
Well, I bought a 35 millimeter adapter. That was that kind of ugly duckling era where it basically was a HV30 with like this big bulky, it must have been about this big lens adapter, and then I put a lens, DSLR lens on the front of it, and it had because you had to have like a spinning or like some sort of grained glass that would spin, ground
never
glass.
got that part of it.
It had like a power switch you'd have to turn it on otherwise. And I bought that from Sam Reich, who was obviously does college humor stuff and all that. And I bought it like right at just like the wrong time when DSLR stuff was really happening.
Yes, I remember that. Like a month before the first DSLR came out, and it was completely worthless. Like a month after.
So Sam scammed you.
Yeah, exactly. He saw it coming.
Yeah, I think he did. He's a smart guy. The BFX finale was like really such a culmination of all the things that we had learned, because that was just me and you, Eric, going around and filming stuff, and those are some of my fondest memories. Like when we went to Sundance, we did a bunch of things for the channel. That was super fun, and that was like, it was, even though Eric and I started the channel together, we weren't really actually able to work on it together a lot, because I was working on so many other things at Next New. And so it was sort of few and far between when we would actually really get to work together in depth on different projects. But they were definitely highlights for me. I don't know, maybe lowlights for Eric.
No, absolutely. And when I do look back, and I wanted to watch more of the old stuff before this podcast, I didn't get to, but because it's been, a decade since I've gone back and watched a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, geez.
I lived it. I'm not ready yet. But
Josh and I always, like, immediately after we record a podcast, we forget everything we said. So I can't imagine 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, the ones, whenever there was a handful of test films that me and Justin got to do together. Some of them literally just like the two of us late at night. One that really comes to mind was the second fake hand episode where we chopped it in half, and me and Justin play the weird German filmmakers.
That was so fun.
I rewatched that and I'm like, man, this holds up. Like a lot of the old test films I just watch and just makes me cringe. But
yeah,
the ones that me and Justin worked on, the one that Justin helped on, were always the best. And the ones that we did with Mark Douglas, just all the musical ones, because that was all his genius, obviously writing all the music. Although I did help write some of the Halloween rap, so I did.
Yeah,
I'll take credit for that.
The wizard rap battle one, like, it just, like, everything about it is like so crazy produced for the time, and like still holds up today. And the rap itself is great. It's so wild to go back and watch like people that we used to watch back in the day, and like, because there's so much stuff on YouTube that just doesn't age well, whether it be like politically doesn't age well, or it's like, oh, this was clearly like shot on like high 8 tape.
Yeah,
right.
But so much you're like, I was like so enthralled to see what would happen to Gary when you guys went back in time. Like, aside from just the nostalgia of it, like and to learn too that you were learning all this stuff as we were learning this stuff too. Like, it makes you feel so a part of it. And like, we talk so much about like the golden era of YouTube having like more of a community to it, and just learning like all the people that you were working with. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah, definitely.
There was like one guy that worked at the company of all of Next Networks that had any like actual like real on-set experience. I guess 2, Alan, but like, and sometimes I just think back when he was helping us make things, and I'm just like, was he ever like, who are these fucking kids? So I don't know if I could swear.
No, you can. We've been doing it all the time.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
Canada, it's a free country.
Yeah. But it was all, there was that community vibe of us all learning and teaching each other amongst the company, and then of course connected with the community. And we were in the forums all the time. Like, I think we loved surfing the forums as much as
or even if you go to the old
members.
Videos, like I swear, like half the comments on the videos are you guys replying to comments and engaging with the community,
just to get that engagement up. And that was something I asked Fred Seibert years later. I was like, Fred, I was 23, 24. I'm like, Fred, why did you hire me to take on this role? Like, I knew nothing about promos and packaging and branding. He's like, Justin, I hired you specifically because you didn't know anything. Because if you would have hired some old TV head who had come from, cable or whatever, it just wouldn't be true to the medium. We were making stuff for people who were our age or slightly younger. And I think that like kind of experience and that polish, we were trying to make a new thing. We weren't trying to a new version of something that's been around for a long time. But I just thought it was so interesting that they really took the perspective of like, we want people who are eager, who will create something new and not come in with a bunch of preconceived ideas. And so, that was like a big kind of realization of like, oh, they didn't want us knowing everything, because then we probably would charge too much.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
I also think that one addition is I think that the founders of Next Networks, who are all great, just had a really great eye for people who like didn't have any of this sort of like real Hollywood experience, but were really in touch, obviously creative, but like in touch with how to make it. Because I guess we're like raised by TV. I mean, I think if you look at all the old Next Network stuff, in Indy Mogul especially, like just the fact that we had like interstitials and like all that fun stuff is like very TV. But that wasn't like they were pushing us to do that. I think it was just maybe they hinted at it. But
Well,
I feel like
it's
that's,
the same
that's something
as-
you and I were talking about,
Yeah.
right? It's like a lot of the old people on YouTube, their stuff had like this kind of TV show feel, which now like people have sort of dropped that pretense where they're like, it's internet stuff. And I think on one
It's
hand, I
this-
kind of miss it. Like
I do. It's like kind of this cool hybrid of like kind of like between what the internet has come now and also TV.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Because it's like low budget. It feels, a big word that we like to use also is authentic. Like it feels very authentic and true to you guys. But like still
we
has
use that. We try to use that word a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a really good word, and it's like kind of part of our thesis statement, I guess you could say.
Oh,
for the show.
absolutely. And I think you also have to think like similar to what you guys were doing and kind of trailblazing the way for what internet content became. You have to think about like the new Hollywood era, like Spielberg and Scorsese and these like film school kids that like it's not in the studio system. You're kind of being grassroots and kind of having to do it on a budget. And I think one of the biggest things that luckily our film school did, and also you guys taught us, was like how to work on a budget, like what is and what isn't necessary on a set. Like, do we need to have like 4 grips here with like huge 10Ks and ballast boxes and like a generator? Or can we get away with like using like a low light sensitive camera and LEDs? You know, like what are you going to do to make this more efficient? Like, yeah, we could spend like a whole bunch of money on fake blood, or, you know, we could make it the Indy Mogul way with corn syrup and red dye. How can we cheat certain things to not be spending a whole ton of money? Where is, I think, you know, a lot of people we know that went to like, don't want to shit on Vancouver Film School, but to shit on Vancouver Film School, they, you know, you pay so much to go there and they have all this technology readily available. So you don't learn how to like make shit work for cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing that I say a lot. And I was actually just so like a family, or my wife's family's like kids graduation party, whatever. But there was like a kid in middle school who was also like making his own movies and all that kind of stuff. Wait, now, you know, obviously kids aren't watching Indy Mogul. They got a million other things to watch. But one thing I always try to tell kids is like, you know, hey, if you're going to film school, you're like learning about stuff, never let your lack of gear stop you from making something. I think a lot of times people can spend a bunch of money on film school and then be like, well, I gotta have this, I gotta have that, like I can't do it until I have all these things. And then you just end up waiting to have those things, and then years go by and then you've done nothing. So
Yeah.
really it's like such an important lesson to just be like, oh, if you're gonna do something, like just do it, and if you don't do it great, there'll always be the next thing, and you will.
That's
of
kind of a
course.
lesson that we've learned
Yeah,
also.
like this is floor tiling for pets that we have on the wall. We're using light lanterns and like work lights that I've screwed into my wall here. Like
Nice.
a lot of the stuff, like our set is just stuff we had lying around. Like we have an 8mm camera, these felts that people made of our faces. Like whoever would do the cheapest like print for our logo, like
Yeah, and it's like it's not even like mounted to anything. It just has like a tape ball behind it. So like
tape
that's
ball,
what-
yeah, and I think it's one of those things where like I don't know, again, like that authenticity feel, like you know, if we just had the money to buy proper like acoustic foaming and had someone like, or even I just like built the set, like would I have learned anything?
Yeah. Well, and also, but I mean, kind of in line with what you were saying, Justin, is like, if we were to wait for like someone to give us like the cash to do it, right?
Yeah, or
like,
a budget.
It would never happen.
No, we never
gotta
get anything
start.
done.
You got to start making stuff to show people, like, hey, I can do stuff. So then someone will give you money to do something better.
Exactly.
I think a big thing that me and Thomas had when we went to film school is like we were YouTube babies, you know, like I think a lot of people were coming in with a philosophy of like never been on a set, never tried to make a movie before.
Yeah.
But like, what can I learn? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think like we kind of had that BFX DIY mindset going into it. And I think because of that, like, don't want to shit on anyone else, but like, I think we did have like the best looking film, because like, okay, what can we build with scraps? You know, like what can we make look good with our like $3,000 budget, which like when you're a kid, that sounds like a lot of money.
Oh,
and I think
yeah.
that was one of the most disheartening things I learned going into both independent film and the film industry is like, well, someone's going to give me $3,000 for a movie. Okay, well, you have to think of catering and insurance and like getting permits and like actually getting gear. And by that point, you're like, oh my God, this is nothing.
Yeah. And also like paying for crew properly.
Yeah, paying for crew.
Because that's
And another
Damn.
big thing I noticed, like, oh shit, I did learn from you guys and a little bit from Freddie W2 is like, if you're not going to pay people, you got to feed them well. And that's a lesson that a lot of independent filmmakers don't do. And you'll come on a set and it will be like, you're doing someone a favor and it's like cold pasta salad and like a bag of chips. And
they
you're
don't
like,
even have Welch's.
Don't even have Welch's. And you're like, I don't want, not even real fruit gummies. You're just like, I don't want to be here right now. This small amount of food is not going to energize me because it's independent film, an 18-hour day.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Right.
but if you
I
can
like
get like
to pay people nothing and then just have a shitload of caviar and just be like, explain that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beluga caviar, so I really had to spend a good 20 G's to get it.
Yeah.
I could have paid you guys a
I
good
could
day
have
rate.
paid you.
That's how I want to, repay you for doing this for free. Like, it really,
Yeah.
What would you prefer, being able to pay rent or having a great story about the time you had beluga caviar?
A couple bites of
Yeah. Oh,
saltiness.
everyone only gets one spoonful.
Oh, that's heavily monitored. No.
Yeah,
doubles.
I could only afford a small platter.
Yeah, you don't want a Christian Slater on set eating it all.
No. Like,
Oof.
It's a really weird reference I just used there to Curb. Anyway, sorry.
The first job after we sort of left Indy Mogul, the first gig we got was this music video for this artist. She's kind of gotten big now, K-Flay, and we got paid, I think it was $13,000, which at the time we were like you guys said, we were like, holy shit, we can do anything.
You're like, we're
And so-
millionaires.
so we
and this is,
conceived.
keep in mind, this is us, 9 years ago? Like, this isn't that long in terms of, whatever.
No, it wasn't. No. And so we conceived this insane thing that had like a custom puppet, other puppets. We did like bullet time, like DIY bullet time, I think before anyone else. And we had kids, multiple locations. It was, I think we shot for like 4 days.
Three days at least.
Yeah,
Primary
It was
shoot.
insane. And we ended up, I think we ended up spending like $1,000 of our own money. The video I thought turned out pretty awesome, but it was a real quick lesson. And
I mean, honestly, only going over like $1,000 on that seems like that's pretty
with
good.
that budget, it makes sense.
it was
that
still
you
a
guys did it.
marvel.
Yeah.
No, that's still like, I don't think anyone else could have done that. Like, I think.
Yeah.
I do have a question about. Sorry
Timmy,
to cut you
hit
off.
us.
I have a question about the budget wheel in the backyard effects videos.
Sure.
It was totally
Was
real. Nothing was rigged.
Always real? Yeah. Okay. I was
No.
just curious. No, it wasn't real. Well, I don't know.
Oh, you're actually asking?
I'm actually asking.
No, they had the predetermined budget and they'd spin until it got on.
I don't know. As a kid, I thought it was
yes.
real because I was like a child, and then I watched it recently. And I went, wait, maybe I don't believe this.
There's two funny stories about that. One, yes, it was fake. Basically, I would make it as cheap as I could.
Yeah.
And then we would fake it. But the funny thing is that like almost every episode, the wheel wasn't rigged at all. It just freely spun. And so I would just meticulously spin it. I would just film it and spin it over and over again until it landed on the thing. And sometimes just, the randomness of the universe, it would take a long time.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I'm pretty sure it was you, Justin, at
It
one
was
point was
me.
just like, why don't you just film it hitting every number and then just like reuse that footage? And I was like, oh yeah. At the time, because I never had any like set. I never like marked where the camera was or anything.
Yeah.
It was every episode was sort of just thrown together, especially all that hosted stuff was always done very last.
Yeah.
And if there's any episodes where I just look so tired and it's like dark outside the windows because it was like 2 a.m. before the episode's going to come out the next day.
Yeah.
And it was always the last thing. And so, if I used it, stock footage of the wheel, it wouldn't match. That was my justification. But yeah, there was so much footage and my personal time spent spinning that wheel over and over again.
What about
why
the
you
trip to
destroyed
Jersey
it in
though?
the
Like,
finale.
when you put the trip to Jersey on
No.
there, did you know that was going to happen?
No, that was just a beautiful thing. It was always there as just a joke. I think it was there from the very pilot.
It was,
that had Trip to Jersey, and it was just this thing that I just, and it never landed on it. And then so when we were, when I was writing the finale, season 1 finale, I was like, we gotta land on it. And I think there's that joke where it's like, what does it mean?
Yeah, no, you guys are so confused and scared. And you're like, there's a noise.
Yeah.
Well, because you were in San Francisco at the beginning, right? When you first started making the show?
Yes, it was this really crappy apartment right on the Oakland-Berkeley border. But how we were able to go back and shoot in the same backyard is because my friend Chris, who's in a lot of the early episodes, the guy in the jetpack, and he, like, when totally unpaid, he was basically like my human tripod / like only other person I had to help in those early days.
Yeah.
Because Justin was in New York, living the high life, and before I moved to New York, and he still to this day lives in that apartment.
Oh, nice.
And him and some friends actually bought the building.
Okay.
And so now they own it. But when, however many years from when it was, what year do we do that
2007. 2008, I think was the finale. Yeah, 2008.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought it was.
You guys say 2008 in it, like we got it. So.
Huh. Okay. And then, but we had moved in there in like 2005 or something. So anyways, he still lived there. We still had access to the backyard just by chance.
Yeah.
So we flew there. And at the time, I forget. Oh, no, okay. So I'm mixing up the season 1 finale and the series finale.
Mm-hmm.
The series finale is where we go back in time and go back to the backyard.
Yeah, which is Trip to Jersey.
No. Those are Trip to Jersey was the season 1 finale.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And then
Oh, so for the series finale, yes.
Which was like 2011 or something. He was still there, and we were able to go back when evil Eric with an eye patch kills past Eric.
Wow, it was 2008. They're not lying.
For the season 1.
Yeah.
Season 1 finale, probably.
Yeah, because season 1 lasted like a year and a half.
Yeah, we do a
It was like 1 year, 4 months, 5 days, and
that's
8 hours
right.
or something.
Yeah.
The robot says the exact amount of time
So-
we've been working on it.
And the whole reason we did that was just because I had been making episodes every week for a year and a half, and I was so exhausted, and we realized like, oh, right, the internet, like TV shows get breaks. The internet doesn't do that. So we just sort of created like the idea of seasons for us.
Yeah.
So that I could take a break. And like I went to Mexico. Like that wasn't a joke. I did go to Mexico for real.
Nice.
And just because I was so burnt out.
That's exactly us right now.
Yeah, we have a lot of more commercial work lined up now, so we do have to take a break because it's so hard to find guests.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hit us back, guests,
please.
But now this is I think a question I'll ask for Thomas.
Real quick before we get too far from this, the reason why I brought up that you were in San Francisco, I find it like you just put Trip to Jersey just like as a random place. Jersey's funny. It's like the butt of so many jokes. I just put it. It's like I guess I thought like it was a trip. And like, where's a place that no one wants to go? I think that was that was the idea. I guess it's actually even kind of funnier because you're so much further away. So you're traveling so far to go to somewhere no one wants to go.
Exactly. And then, but when we actually shot the finale, we were in New York, and we actually literally went to Jersey
and
to
had
film
a great Kevin Smith impersonator.
Yeah, that was really. If someone had told me that was just him and you could only get wild lines or ADR of him, I would totally believe it.
Really? Oh man, we'll have to tell Chad.
He did a great job.
That was our friend from also Film Fights. Immortal Dog, was that? Yeah, that's.
I just another thing, just because you guys were similar time, similar space, and you guys have that robot build. Did you guys ever do work with Waverly Flams?
Yeah, that's a YouTube thing, Waverly Films, and actually, I would say
they guest directed and starred in a test film.
Yeah, they did a couple.
Oh,
so there was the Indiana Jones Skull test film,
Crystal Skull. Yeah,
that was one, and then they did another one where they made a lot of. Was that the one where they're joking about advertising and how much it sucks? Like that might have been it. And they also were guests in. We do a Film Fights TV thing for Indy Mogul as well, and I believe they were like kind of guest judges for that. But those guys, Chris Ford and John Watts, like. just so talented. The stuff they were putting out, and especially early internet stuff, like so well
so
put together.
good.
So good. We looked up
to
to them so much.
They were crazy. I remember watching them as a kid and just being like, going back and watching them. They're still incredible. Like,
I mean,
yeah.
that's why
So
John
talented.
is directing Spider-Man. You know,
Spider-Man,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh
Chris
my
is still
god,
writing films
when
now.
that movie came
Bevers
out,
is in all their videos, and then like to see like Bevers when Broad City came out was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it was just like there's so many little things that
and they also have Kunal. What's his last name?
Kumail Nanjiani.
That's it. Yeah, he's in some of their videos. And also another
Yeah.
weird connection thing that I just discovered. So, did you guys watch the new Bo Burnham special?
Inside? No, I haven't seen. I just saw it. We
So
noticed it
good.
the other day,
It's
yeah.
really good. Yeah, we're both big Bo Burnham.
And he did everything, like the lighting, the cinematography, all on his own on like robotic rigs. Beautiful.
It's very, very good.
Sweet.
That dude he's like a white whale for us to get him on the show. But
The white whales are you guys, Bo Burnham, and Philip DeFranco. So we've got one.
yeah, we're doing
Yeah.
pretty well.
Okay,
That's our
DeFranco,
3
all right.
seasons.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was watching just like for fun and posterity's sake, I was watching his old stuff on YouTube, like way back, and he has a music video for one of his songs called Words, Words, Words that was directed by one of the Waverly Films guys, Duncan something. I can't remember his
Oh
last
yeah,
name.
Duncan. He was like the first one who was their DP, and yeah, just super amazing.
Yeah, and he directed, I think he directed Puppet Rapist, which then made me think of you,
Sure.
Eric, because you made puppets, and I was wondering if there was a connection there, but I checked the credits and I didn't see anything.
That was a one-on-one thing.
Yeah, that was because so I discovered film fights and 101 at the same time,
Yeah.
you know, before I met Justin. And I remember seeing Channel 101 and being like, oh, I'm definitely not good enough for that. And like film fights, I kind of saw film fights as like the minor leagues for Channel 101. But then a guy named Dave Seeger, who did a bunch of stuff for Indy Mogul and then was a film fighter, and then pretty much, I don't know if he still does, but ran Channel 101 after kind of Rob Schraub and Dan Harmon were too busy doing other things. It's so the good word for incestuous.
It's a small world.
It's
a small
so
world.
because you guys like know some people from 101, you have film fights. Do you guys know the Blame Society guys? Chad Vader?
Oh,
good.
I'm,
yeah.
I'm really
So Chad
glad.
Vader-
Okay.
Because we had them on as a guest. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Also
Very
super
cool.
OG.
You know them way better because you guys are from the same town or something.
I was
right,
going
Justin?
to. Okay, I have this on my little notes. This is some real deep internet here, but so I'm from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and they went to school in Chippewa Falls, which is right next door. And they Yonda had a show called Splu Urtaf, which is a public access show.
Yeah.
And I watched that when I was in middle school. And that was my major inspiration for me doing film stuff. The fact that there was other people in a town near me doing this super weird, creative public access show. And they're really, and then when they started blowing up with the Chad Vader stuff and all the other things, I was just like, oh my God, it's the guys from public access. And years later, this is probably 2004, 2005, I was home for the summer or something for a little while. It was around my birthday, and they were doing a reunion show at public access, and I went over and I met them. I was just like so starstruck. And I actually just saw Yonda 2 months ago. We hung out in Madison for a little while, so we still stay in touch. But that was just
This
like,
is so insane.
they were like my Indy Mogul, because I never would, to have someone who's like relatable in that kind of way versus like they're in Hollywood, they're in LA or whatever, was such a big step for me.
Because I know they did a Barely Political video too, a music video. So
And we
like,
did some stuff with them later.
yeah, I think you guys did as well.
We, because we did a Pringles Star Wars commercial. We did a couple Star Wars things where, because he became like the go-to Vader voice.
Yeah, he
right?
is like if they can't get Jimmy Jones.
Yeah.
Jimmy Jones.
And so, and I don't think there would, the things that we were doing were so low budget. I think 'cause at that point he was already doing Vader for all the video games and everything. I think if we didn't have that personal connection, I don't know if he would have like done it. So we had access to like one of the best Vader voices.
Yeah,
in
if
the
you're gonna
game.
do it, take it. I have one. This is a fan theory. Only I think I have.
Okay.
And I don't know if he has ever gotten this. I don't know if this is just something I thought of when I was a child. But Steve Nelson, he's not the kid who's friends with Eyeball from Stand By Me, right?
No,
he
Steve
looks-
Nelson was not famous. He was not famous before.
That's because he looks and sounds exactly like the guy who is Eyeball's like right-hand man in Stand By Me.
I feel like the ages would have been way.
Yeah.
I know, it doesn't make
I don't think
any
he was-
logical sense.
I think he was even born when
No, it doesn't make any sense. But in my mind as a young kid, I was just like, they sound and
Oh,
look so
sure.
similar, you know?
I'll have to go back and watch that.
And
Yeah,
I
good old-
think I
good
even
old Steve.
Googled it and I couldn't find it. But I'm like, no, there's some sort of conspiracy here, like Marilyn Manson and the kid from that show, Wonder Years, I think it was.
Oh, right.
I don't know that one.
This is a thing that only I think. It's
Yeah.
not like there were like on the forums, other Indie Mogul fans were like, it's the guy from Stand By. It's Stand By
Yeah,
Me.
no.
It was just you.
He's a time traveler.
Yeah, he could be.
Because I saw Indie Mogul first and then saw Stand By Me, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is that
it's, all,
Steve
it's
Nelson?
all coming together.
No, Steve was part of another film fights group. What was it? On Rye.
On Rye Productions.
Was-
Yeah, they're amazing.
And I remember so amazing. I remember watching their videos, and they were like babies, like just in high school, maybe like sophomores in high school, and like I was out of college and I was like mad that their videos were so good, and they're just so funny, and so it was great to get to work with him and Jake. Jake came on later. Yeah, so such funny guys.
And Jake Strunk, so he was really, one of the kind of masterminds behind Bobby Miller's show with real good show and a lot of that stuff. And I know Jake was camera for you, Eric, and I think edited a lot of BFX episodes, right?
He edited a lot of later stuff. He was in a bunch. He was camera. He became that guy that was like there at 2
Like
a.m.
Chris,
helping
yeah.
us film test films. Yeah,
Steve is a full-time editor for Google now. He edits like ads for Google and stuff, which is really awesome.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I keep in touch with everyone, Eric. That's my thing.
I know. This is good. I like it. I like it.
So wild. Just all the people that are connected. And I think I'm going to go back to angsty teenage Josh for a second. Because
You're going to become him?
I'm going to tell a little bit about him because I remember when Eric, you no longer hosted BFX and Zach Finfrock came and
drama.
No shade to Zach. There were a lot of like BFX he did that I liked. I watched Nuka Break. I love Nuka Break. No shade, but he's not Eric Beck. And I remember at that
Poor
time
bastard.
being so pissed that you were leaving. And you're like, who's this chump who
Yeah.
thinks he can be Beck?
This crowbar
He's
guy.
audacity.
Crowbar guy.
This crowbar guy. Oh man, the crowbar. It's funny you say that. Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't really think about it, but yeah, we definitely put him in a tough position.
Yeah.
And also I think, I was suffering from such extreme burnout at that point before,
of
now
course.
now YouTubers, I mean, it's like it's a common term.
Oh,
among
YouTuber burnout.
content
People
creators,
take
yeah.
breaks if they need. Yeah,
And
it's
But at the time that no one even used that term, it was just too new because we were so early into the scene. I like to, when I'm like working with people and my YouTube internet past comes up, my joke is like, oh, I was a YouTube star before you could make money in it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, now I see what I was experiencing from. So if I could go back in time, I would have told past Eric to like take more breaks and stick with it a little longer. But yeah,
Well, I think
it
that's
was
something
just so long.
like the perception of people making internet content back on the day. Like you'll hear like the Homestar Runner guys talk about this too, where it's like they just didn't think of it being a real job, or it's like, what do you mean? Like you have burnout? You're making videos on the internet. You must be having
where
a
it's like
blast.
so much more work than the average day job.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
people
Oh, yeah.
never thought. Probably more work than like being on a union set, because like here's a little insider for everyone watching who doesn't know. You get you do a 12-hour day. Anything after that is paid overtime, so they usually try to avoid doing more than a 12-hour day.
It jumps right to
Whether
double
it's
time
just like
also.
a regular indie set, like a Hallmark, or even lower end of like something we would be doing, like especially as like on the commercial that we do or the shoots we do, IPM and Thomas Directs, we're looking at it like a 19-hour day average. Maybe
You and I.
Yeah, you and I.
Okay,
And
not
then
our crew.
Our crew, we try to keep at 12, but usually like max out to 16. So you're definitely more tired and getting more burnt out, because like you're not like, oh, union restrictions, we got to leave. It's like, no, we got to get this video out tomorrow.
Yeah.
whatever
Well, like
we
you
got
were
to do, we're
saying,
gonna
like
do it.
you were recording stuff like at night because the night before it was gonna come out. Because
Yeah,
if you
and then
didn't,
just-
it wouldn't.
Well,
Right?
Eric and I were roommates, and for a while, and Eric was sharing or was renting like a spare room in our house, and I feel like we would rarely even see each other because you would be gone in the office. You'd sleep in the office sometimes, Eric. I mean,
I did sometimes, yeah.
And you think of movies and TV shows, it's like people work super hard for a couple months, and then they get to take a break and they go on vacation. And the cadence is so different. And back then it was like, oh, we're hiring this guy, Eric. He makes the show. His job is to make this show. And the show has to come out every week on Monday at, noon, whatever it was. And so that was just the thing. Be like, well, we can't. And Eric's thing, he'd always say this legendary, he was always trying to, he's like, I'm going to get ahead. Gotta get ahead. Just get a couple episodes ahead.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem we have right now. We're literally we're like, let's get all these guests and we'll be like a month ahead of like everything even going out in our Patreon. And always like 2 weeks later, we're like, we were just like at the office until like, geez, it's not even that long. I hate to say that after you said you're sleeping there, but we were at the office quite late, like probably until like 10, just like, okay, well, we have to finish the episode before it goes out on Patreon.
PM?
Like I gotta
Get out of here.
Well, this
Eric
is
and Threadbanger, you guys would have the legendary Czar bar, Rob Czar's secret alcohol stash in the office.
I never really touched that.
Oh, you never messed with the Czar bar? Okay.
No, I was an on or off type of guy. like
yeah.
I would cut loose hard, but not when I was there.
Normally, I'll say like I'll get the video podcast done a week earlier, and then it's like 4 a.m. the night before, like exporting it and like uploading it. Like,
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it was like that, but every day.
Yeah, so that's definitely some burnout there.
And I just remember, I think well, I know that you guys know this, but also just the whole promotional side of it is a whole nother job. Obviously, that's people's jobs, like social media managers or whatever. But for me, I remember the hardest part was those 2-3 in the morning when I was always save the hosty part to the end, and I had to be like super chipper and like, hey guys, this is blah, blah.
On, yeah.
And just every time I was so tired and just beat down every time I had to like flip that switch and go from 10% energy to 140%. I just felt like me sapping like a year of my life. Like it was just like, if I'm gonna live till 85, 84. Like every time I had that transition was just so unnatural. That's what I remember the most. Like as far as the
and that
pain
doesn't
point.
even count all the chemicals you were using in your
We did. Fun fact though, most of the show was in this high rise like office building on Park Avenue, and we were on the 9th floor, right? Yeah, 9th floor. And my tiny little workshop that you see in the videos a lot was against a wall of windows. And we actually, with a blowtorch, heated up one of the squares of glass that had probably been there for like 100 years to remove it, and then built like a makeshift paint booth in there. So I was like, I would try and wait until everyone left to spray paint. But this was just like a regular office building.
Yeah.
With editors like 20 feet away. That was also a reason why I think I had to work a lot later, is because a lot of times I would just have to wait till people left to like use those chemicals. But I did have a spray booth that shot chemicals out onto Park Avenue.
Jeez.
Which was pretty awesome.
You
I think
probably
back
were a
to
bioterrorist.
Yeah.
Well,
I think back to that workshop, and it was just such a.
Well, it's so cool
who else could
too.
say? Yeah.
It's like just an iconic thing that is like, again, like so many other things burnt into the brain. Like even like the Erica's a professional, don't know what he does or he'll be maimed, and like
like what a joke that was.
Yeah.
And
that disclaimer came up after one of the first episodes.
Voicemail.
Someone called them with a voicemail being like, I did your air cannon and like blew off my fingers, and it was this angry. We think it was probably a joke, and then
you could tell it was joke.
We sent it to the lawyer at Next Networks, and he was like, yeah, we should probably have a disclaimer before the show.
Well, I think it's I was rewatching like a whole bunch of like your first episodes, and I was like, I want to find the point where you first see the disclaimer and you first see like the shopping list and the super time lapse in that voice. Because it's like, that's when I started watching. So like that was my memory. So I'd go back and watch the first episode again. It's like, Where's the super time lapse? Where's the disclaimer?
It was, yeah, the disclaimer. I feel like the super time lapse came pretty quick,
but everything
it wasn't.
Pretty
It wasn't.
quick.
Yeah, that's true.
It was pretty full. It was, to give myself credit, it was pretty fully formed from the beginning.
No, it was just like that little thing. And I was like, it was like, oh, maybe this is like, I think it was like the 12th video, but it was only like a couple weeks after. Like, you guys really pushed out quite a few videos,
every week.
Even compared, like, cause like now it's like a lot of YouTubers I follow. It's like maybe once a month I'll get like, there'll be like an in-depth video or something like that. Yeah. But even in old YouTube, when there was like weekly videos, for the amount of work that you guys were putting in, the quality level, you guys were doing a fuck ton.
Alone.
And that was literally, and that was literally every week. Like, even now, I mean, I didn't know any better. So I was just so amazed that someone was paying me to get to be creative. And, you know, I still would do it again 100 times over. But like, now working in like the professional space, thinking back to what we did, and was like, yeah, I didn't know how to create these effects. So I was teaching myself how to do it, conceiving it, actually building it, and then making a short film. And that, a lot of times the short films were like the bad ones were just because they were so rushed. You know, the order was like, we probably spent most of the time conceiving and building the thing, and then we're like, oh shit, we have to make a dumb video using it. And then, oh shit, now I got to do the like hosty bits.
One of my favorite.
Oh shit, now I got to edit it.
One of my favorite test movies that you did is for the dummy that you make out of duct tape.
Oh man,
that was
such a
Such a topical thing a dummy right now. Yeah.
I really need to finish it, but I've been wanting to have a dummy since I first saw that video. Like when it came out, I've wanted to build a dummy, and I've just never done it. But
you just did.
We have it. I don't have the head yet because I want to get. The reason why is because I want to get like a burlap fabric for the head, just because I feel like I like that look.
Okay, totally.
So what we did is we bought like a jumpsuit, like a coverall jumpsuit, and we're filling that with like fabric and stuff rather than the duct tape thing. But it's still a great method. But I just want the. I think it's funny that he's wearing a coverall, but then you put clothes over the coverall. I think that's funny. Just because it looks really bad. Anyway,
yeah, you got to get the tape to get the form that because it keeps its shape.
It looks great. It looks really, really good.
That we use that dummy a lot, but actually, totally kind of related note is a friend just sent me an article. There's this really famous group of loft buildings in Brooklyn. They're called the McKibben Lofts. They're just sort of like infamous hipster lofts. And when I first moved to New York, I lived in one, and that's where some of the early New York episodes, we shot all the hosty stuff on that roof.
On the roof?
It's the one that has all the crazy graffiti. Yeah. And then later on, it was on Justin's roof, where I was roommates briefly. But we threw that, the article is all about how they had these crazy parties, and people would like throw TVs off the roof, and so I got to read the article and be like, we threw a person off that roof. And I remember like it was the middle of the day too, and just some nice lady was like walking by. Just we didn't come anywhere close to hitting her, but like just seeing a human form flutter.
You ruined her day.
Yeah. So
or made it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
There were no PAs blocking off the street warning people.
No, there was no lockups on that set.
But and we're getting to that time. But I do want to say, like, I think definitely for you guys, I would assume, but for us too, is like having this, and really the best way to call it is that indie mogul mindset of coming into a film set of like having this, you know, doing everything pretty much, working with your budget, and also being in a position where like you're always working late and hustling to get everything done when you need to. That really makes you an asset on a set. Because I think in the union world, I'm shitting on a lot of people in this episode, but not to shit on. We always do. That's fair. Not to shit on the union world, but I think the mindset of that is like, if you're a grip, you're a grip. You're not doing anything else. If you're a set dresser, you're a set dresser. You're not doing anything else. And I think I've always hated that philosophy. And I get why it's done when you have all these people and you want everything to be efficient. I get that. But I think, and like how we like to run our sets is, we're all a community and we're all filmmakers. Even if I'm the PM on the day, I can set up a light. I can move a C-stand. I don't think anyone should feel above a job. And I think because of that, one thing I think we really have taken away from, like, we've almost never gone overtime.
Yeah, we're pretty good about not going over time.
Pretty good about keeping time. Like even in film school,
Keeping budget and keeping time is
keeping
something we
budget
do
and
pretty
keeping
well.
time are something we haven't, like, I think almost 80% of the films in our final year were like, of the $3,000 budget, most people were over $5,000, and every day went over the 12.
Yeah.
Most people missed getting a lot of their shots, but like just
We
because
were under budget and under time.
we for our $3,000 budget, we only spent 22. And every day we were under time.
Yeah,
and
on the last day we were like quite under time, to the point where I was like, "Does anyone have any shots? Like any ideas? For something
Any
we should
ideas?
shoot?"
Yeah.
And straight up, I think it was the first AC suggested a shot that ended up being the last shot of the movie. So
Wow,
And
that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
I think it was because we had this like shooting on mini DV or like a Canon T2i, doing everything for free, having to like download a copy of After Effects Trial and reinstall your OS, like all this. You got nothing style of filmmaking just using your dad's old camera, and watching Indy Mogul definitely put us in that position. So like, I mean, we got to thank you guys. Like I don't think we'd be in the position we are
thank
today
you.
if it weren't for you. Like,
I mean, it's not like I don't know how much, Justin, you listen to our episodes, but we do say countless times we use your guys' name and say we're goddamn Indie Moguls, because
that's
it's
fun.
just
Oh,
it's a
that's
good
awesome.
name.
and I think like even aside from even the work that we're getting to do now, working with smaller budgets and having the ability to, I think, give a better product than I think a lot of people that would have a larger budget. No need to praise ourselves.
Yeah, you're really like wanking off right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's pretty unattractive.
But no, I think like even my first job in film, like I think I was saying this to you guys in the pre-interview, was like I there's a visual effects studio. My dad he's an actor, and he was on a set, and he said, "Hey, can my son check out your studio?" Because I was doing a lot of visual effects from stuff that like I learned from you guys or the Quarter guys, and they said, "Oh, like where do you learn?" And I said, "Oh, just YouTube." And they're like, I can't give you a job. You're 16. You haven't gone to school, but I can say that we might get a job. We might be able to give you a job if you want to come intern. And it was just starting like taking HDR eyeballs and setting them up and organizing files. And eventually, like through learning more stuff and through them, like I got a job in After Effects. And like I've been making movies since I was 5, but like I stopped in high school because I was like, oh, I got to try to smooch girls
And smoke some dank weed.
smoke some weed. And then finding Indie Mogul like brought that love back for me. So like I don't know if I would have kept at that if it weren't for you guys. So like genuinely, like not just blowing smoke up asses here. Like I don't know if I'd be a filmmaker today if it weren't for you guys. So I really
but
appreciate
how
you.
many girls did you kiss?
None.
Yes.
That's also our fault.
Yeah.
None until college.
Then it was disgusting.
It was disgusting.
Well, it's something where we feel, I know Eric obviously has this experience when people come up to him and give him well wishes and whatnot. And I feel like it's a contribution that I think that at the time we had a lot of fun doing. And for us, it was a great experience to work together and those kinds of things. But it is something where like now I can almost like if a kid's of a certain age and they're into film stuff, like and it's been changing every year. Before it was like in their early 20s, those kids, like the odds are so high that they watched Indie Mogul, and now it's probably kids in their 30s and or late 30s or no late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, it's like mid 20s, because I'm like mid 20s to 30s.
Me too,
Yeah.
No, you can talk to a lot of people like, yeah, my dad drove me to Home Depot so I get PVC and make a fig rig. Like that.
You know what's kind of funny though?
That is something I did.
It's just a strange thing, since you're older than me, but you came on to Indie Mogul like after they moved to New York, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I was watching you guys.
Okay, you're better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I fell off you guys. I don't know why. I guess I hated your content.
Yeah.
Shut up.
That was fair.
But it's
I was
weird
there
that
the whole time because I'm better than Thomas.
Yeah.
So
I always remember I watched your guys' videos all the time. I was like, wow, I really want to make stuff like this. I did make the fake blood. I think we did a zombie makeup and like a wound makeup based off of your guys' videos. For sure.
Those were early.
Yeah, but I was watching back in the backyard, like proper, and then I don't know what happened. But it's just I think it's a weird thing that
you tried to smooch girls and succeeded.
No, not at all.
Different eras. You watch different eras.
But even though that I'm younger, it's just weird to me. I'm not trying to make any statement by it. It's just like it's a strange thing.
It is interesting, and I think it's also interesting because there were other shows than Backyard Effects on Indie Mogul. You know, it started with Backyard Effects, and that was always kind of like the staple. But we added other shows, and it's funny that like some people really like those shows, and then a lot of people like didn't even know that there was other shows. Yeah. And I always just find it so weird, people's unique entry point, and the different eras. I'm sure that there are people that like didn't when Griffin took it over, like, and made all his amazing videos, like, so I like that there's the different eras.
Yeah.
And then
speaking of the different eras, we're really running kind of long, but I do have a question about, again, sort of what could be potentially misinformation online about Indie Mogul. But so it was obviously Next New Networks as a whole was bought by YouTube, including Indie Mogul, and then you guys sold your portion of it, and then did you later buy it back? I can't remember exactly how it happened, but
so basically, yeah, you know, me and Justin were employees at Next New Networks.
Yeah.
And then you know, I created the pilot for Backyard Effects sort of on my own, and then Justin and some of the other people kind of like we created Indie Mogul as like the network around it.
Yeah.
And that did its thing. And then so we never owned it. Right. You know, the Next Networks owned it. Yeah. And then when YouTube bought it, me and Justin were briefly YouTube employees, and we continued making it. And then we just really, I think also just being burnt out and kind of wanting to do our own thing. And
totally.
And we just really didn't jive well with the whole like Google thing. And so that's when we left and like started our own little production company, moved to LA.
Well, I think to clarify that, I think our jobs were sort of like to be kind of creative consultants, and that wasn't totally different than what we were doing before. But the creation, there were a lot more limits when you work for a huge company, like actually you're an actual YouTube employee. And I'm like someone who's always starting side projects, and they're sort of like, anything you do, we own. Like there's a lot of red tape that comes with that. So it was that, and then just that the corporate culture, like we say that the jobs we had at Google, it was someone's dream job, but it wasn't our dream job. And so it was about 6 months, and we were just kind of like, hey, we feel like we were just around turning 30. Like we have a lot more creative things we can do on our own. And that was a real impetus for us to leave and start our own production company in LA and just create stuff on our own. So it was like at that point, Indie Mogul, Barely Political, Threadbanger, all part of this sort of test lab where they would give the channels features that no one else had. Like we would test them, we would give suggestions as well for like things they could add, or how it was like YouTube was building race cars, but they had no race car drivers, and so they're like, "We think this is a car. Does the steering wheel work like this?" Well, I don't know. So that's what Next New was. So we never really owned it, and then we got this incredible opportunity a couple years later when they just sort of they had the rights to these channels. Still, they weren't really using Indie Mogul and a couple other ones as much, and even some that were more popular. And we had a lot of former coworkers who still work there who said like, hey, you know, we're doing this program. And it's totally, they did it. We didn't have to pay for anything. Like they just gave the ownership rights back to us.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
And it just was such an awesome, really just a really generous thing that they did. And then I think it was sort of us jumping back into the saddle. I guess it was like around 2016. And you know, Eric, you can speak to this a little more. But obviously, I think the burnout residual was still very much, you know, there.
So we got it back, and then I think just we were like, hey, let's bring this thing back. And so I think the two big things were, or the couple big things were, one, you know, YouTube had stopped putting anything on it for a couple years.
It was like
prior.
2 or 3 years,
Yeah, so it had been totally dormant. So from, you know, an AdSense perspective, it was also pretty dead. And
you
then
pretty much had to bring it back to life.
But we were excited to, but at that point, you know, we had our little production company, and so we were doing other jobs, as you guys know, to pay the bills. And so, you know, I think I worked on it full-ish time for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something, but it just really quickly became clear that, you know, this was going to take a long time to make it viably, just from a business perspective. And then also just, I think, at least for me personally, it just felt like I had grown kind of creatively beyond the box that Indy Mogul could build, could fit, you know, because like I still love building things, but they had gotten so much more complicated, the type of projects that that interested me. And I didn't want to go back to the cardboard and duct tape.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do was just basically fit a project that should take 3 weeks into like a week. And it just didn't matter. You know, it's a square hole in a round square peg in a round hole. And then we got burnt out. I got burnt out again.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, if I can't offer something, I don't know if you've seen these channels, but there's a really, really good channel called Stuff Made Here. This guy's like a engineering, I think straight up just like a genius. He makes stuff like, I don't know if you've heard of him, but it's like, he made one where it's a basketball hoop where you can never miss. So it's like on, it has used as a Connect to like scan the environment, and then like it's on like a dolly and everything. But I guess because seeing you in the Indy Mogul video where you show off the motorized camera rig that you built and like 3D printed parts for, and use like a drawer to like mount it as well, like drawer
it
rails.
still has that Indy Mogul aspect to it. Of like,
but also it reminds me, and also even watching the very first video with the jetpack and how you're like, oh, we tried to like run it through this PVC piping, but it didn't work because it was too complicated. It really has the exact same energy as the channels now, like Stuff Made Here or Michael Reeves or there's others. So I was gonna even say in some ways you're kind of a predecessor for that as well. But my point more is that there is maybe a market for more complex builds. Also with like the Friends reunion and like the Fresh Prince reunion. It's the perfect You guys got to do an Indy Mogul reunion. It's the perfect time. Go back to the backyard. Yeah. And then go to the roof.
We could. I mean, we could go back to the
It's fine. We'll do it.
Oh yeah,
we could go back to the backyard. We could definitely go back to the backyard. I know the roof would be tougher.
We'll go back to the backyard. We obviously need our expenses paid to get out there.
Of course.
Yeah, a per diem each day for food. But we'll do it. We'll host it for free.
Yeah, we'll host it for free.
Aside from our day rate, we'll host for free. Like there's nothing above our day rate is needed.
All I can offer is a gallon of caviar I spent a lot of money on a few years ago.
All right.
Yeah, it's still good. It's still good, I'm sure, right?
At least like a 3-star hotel as well, and then
we'll do it.
There'll be a shower. Would do it for that's about as much as that's as much as we can promise.
We are getting to that time where it really seems like the cameras are dying, and also we're definitely over. But what I do want to end this on saying is, I don't know if anyone can tell by the podcast I make or my job or my face or my voice, but I wasn't cool in high school. And I remember in our film class, because we had a film studies class where like mostly we just watched films and studied them. They didn't teach us how to make them, but I was watching Corridor and Freddie W. and Indy Mogul, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make films in my class so I don't have to write an essay. And there was the quote unquote cool kid, and he was like, he just shot a conversation, and he's like, and our teacher's like, so what are you doing? And it's like, well, I learned that you didn't have to just put a camera on one person and then switch back between lines. You can do it one, then you can like use the software to cut between. Like this chump don't even know shot reverse shot. Played ours. We had like muzzle flashes. We had like shitty like 3ds Max like helicopters coming in, and we had like the classic like desaturate, crush the blacks, letterboxing top and bottom to make it look cinematic. And we had like the Indy Mogul blown in half effect when someone blows up, and we're like, I showed this kid. No longer is he gonna post on my YouTube videos anti-Semitic things.
Yeah,
but he did. But I made him look like a chump in that class, so I got to thank you guys for that.
We lost my camera.
We lost Thomas's camera. Mine's probably gonna die soon, so I want to say, thank you as an audience for sticking around with us for a season. Thank you so much, Eric and Justin. Like, honestly, like to be just completely honest, like this means so much to me that you guys came on. This is a childhood dream. You guys are some of my biggest inspirations as filmmakers. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. We're doing a burger tour one day. Hopefully we can drive by and grab a cheeky cheeseburger and film it for content.
Everything's got to be for content.
Everything's got to be for content.
I live in Minneapolis now, and there's something called the Juicy Lucy, which is a burger filled with cheese. So you're open.
right.
If you're in
I watched
Minneapolis,
the Burger
come get
Show.
it.
I know the Juicy
Okay.
Lucy. I'm excited. We'll go to Minneapolis now. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Thomas, for being on this journey with me.
Thank you, Josh.
We'll see you guys next season, which could be next week, 2 months from now, a year. We don't know yet.
Yeah, it's whenever it happens.
Whenever
But when we come back, we'll be better than ever.
In our new studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys, so much. Thanks, you guys. You can find
course,
us on
thank you.
all our socials. We have a bad way of saying them. In the new season, we'll know how to say them properly. But When We Are There show on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We're When We Are There show. We are also Friend Styles on our Patreon and our Anchor FM.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That wasn't too
We're
bad.
getting better. It's just so many things now. Like
We
can't
tried
just
to get
be
the
like
same name.
IndyMogul.com. Like that was so easy for you guys.
Us kids these days have it so hard.
Exactly. Anyway, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.